Forget Jif. That yellow-lidded jar lists sugar before peanuts. It costs more every year. It has not changed since your grandmother was a child. And it never started as an apple on a tree. Before that jar owned the pantry, there was apple butter. Dark, thick, cooked down from real apples over a full day on the stove. When peanut butter was expensive and sugar was rationed, apple butter was what went on. Your bread. It came from a bushel of fall apples, a heavy pot, and a Saturday morning. The apples cooked down soft, then liquid, then thick enough to hold a knife upright. The color went from pale gold to dark brown. The house smelled like cinnamon all afternoon. We opened the vault today with a recipe from 1879. An apple butter that costs a few dollars in ingredients, takes hours but not skill, and tastes like the apples it came from. Stay with us through the full cook. If your grandmother put up apple butter, tell us in the comments. We read every story. In the fall of 1938, apples came by the bushel. You ate them fresh until they softened. Then you peeled them, cored them, and cooked them in a heavy pot until the house smelled like cinnamon and smoke. What came out was apple butter, thick as paste, dark as molasses, sweet from the apples themselves. Sugar was expensive. A 5-pound bag was a serious purchase. So grandmothers used the apple's own sugar. Cook them long enough, and the natural sugars concentrate. The longer it cooks, the darker it gets. No pectin packet, no corn syrup. No flavoring from a factory in New Jersey. Apple butter was not a health trend, it was a pantry solution. A bushel of apples that would rot by Thanksgiving could become 20 jars that lasted until Easter. One Saturday batch meant toast on Sunday, sandwiches on Wednesday, a spoon and oatmeal on Friday, and a jar for the neighbor who gave you eggs. Here is what one Saturday batch gave you: toast Sunday and Monday, apple butter and cheese sandwich Tuesday, stirred into porridge Thursday, thinned with hot water and brushed over pork on Friday, nothing thrown away. Because in 1938, you did not waste food. You could not afford to. Families did not eat apple butter to impress anyone. They ate it because it was there, because it turned a surplus into a staple. Because the jar on the shelf meant you had something sweet even when the store was empty. A jar of Jif lasts 2 weeks and costs $6. A batch of apple butter costs about the same, makes 4 jars, and lasts 2 months. The trade is time, not money. The taste is different too. Jif is built for shelf life. It is the same in every state. Apple butter is thick and dark, and carries the particular apples you started with. Tart Granny Smith, sweet Fuji, wind falls from the backyard tree. Your jar is yours. This recipe comes from Dishes and Beverages of the Old South, printed in 1879. Every recipe in it was written for home cooks, not chefs. For people who needed to stretch what the land gave them into what the table needed. The method is the old slow-cook apple butter, the same one found in Appalachian cabins and Pennsylvania farmhouses for over a century. Peeled apples, cider or water, time and heat. Written for hands, not machines. Look at the card on screen. Apples, cider, cinnamon, cloves. Sugar if your apples are tart. 5 ingredients, no factory, no preservatives you cannot pronounce. No jar that lasts 2 years, because nothing in it was ever alive. They wrote it down so the next person would know what to do with a bushel of apples and a cold winter coming. You need 6 pounds of apples. Mixed varieties are best, some tart, some sweet. Rome, Fuji, Granny Smith, whatever your market has. The tart ones give it backbone. The sweet ones give it depth. Together they balance. Windfalls work, bruises do not matter. You are cooking them down. You need 2 cups of apple cider, unfiltered, not sparkling. If you cannot find cider, water works. Cider adds more apple flavor. Water lets the apples speak for themselves. Both are correct. You need a heavy pot, enamel cast iron, stainless steel, or a slow cooker. Not thin aluminum. This cooks for hours and thin metal scorches. A heavy pot holds steady heat. That is what you want. You need a potato masher or an immersion blender, a wooden spoon, a ladle. Half-pint or pint mason jars with lids, 4 or 5 jars for one batch. You need a board and a sharp knife for peeling. Or a peeler if your hands prefer it. A corer helps but is not required. A quartered apple is easy to core with a knife. Optional: 1 cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, half a teaspoon cloves, half teaspoon allspice. The sugar is only if your apples are very tart. Taste first. You may not need it at all. You are not performing. You are continuing something that used to happen in every kitchen in the fall. If this is your first time, say so out loud. No one is judging you. Wash the apples in cold water. Rub off any dirt or wax coating from the store. If you pick them yourself, brush off the field dust. Peel them. It takes 20 to 30 minutes for 6 pounds. Work over a bowl to catch the peels. The peels can be saved for apple jelly later if you are ambitious. Otherwise, compost them. Core and quarter each apple. Cut out any bruised spots or wormholes. Rough chunks are fine. They will dissolve entirely in the cooking. You do not need perfect slices. Put the quarters in your heavy pot as you go. Pour the cider over them. The liquid should come about halfway up the apples. If it does not, add a splash more cider or water. You want moisture, not soup. Set the pot over medium-high heat until you see bubbles at the edge. Then reduce to the lowest simmer your stove allows. Put the lid on, slightly askew, so steam can escape. You want the apples to steam and soften, not boil away. Let it simmer for 1 hour without stirring. The apples will soften and release their juice. You will hear them bubbling gently. The smell will fill the kitchen. After 1 hour, remove the lid. The apples should be soft enough to mash with a spoon. Use a potato masher. Press them against the side of the pot. They should fall apart easily. If they resist, cook another 15 minutes and try again. Once mashed, leave the lid off. Reduce the heat to low. Now you are evaporating water and concentrating flavor. The liquid will reduce. The color will deepen. This is where the magic happens, and it takes time. Stir every 20 to 30 minutes. Scrape the bottom and the sides. Apple butter scorches easily in the last hour, when it is thick and sugary. If you smell anything burning, lower the heat immediately and stir more often. A scorched batch is ruined. There is no fixing it. The color shifts from pale gold to amber to deep brown. This takes 6 to 8 hours on the stovetop. In a slow cooker on low, it takes 10 to 12 hours. Both work. The slow cooker is safer if you need to leave the house. The stovetop gives you more control. In the last hour, the mixture thickens dramatically. It clings to the spoon. It splatters when it bubbles. Use a long spoon. Wear an apron. The hot bubbles burn when they hit your wrist. Add your spices now if using. Stir them in thoroughly. Taste. If the apples were sweet, you may not need sugar. If you add sugar, use half a cup at a time. Let it dissolve. Taste again. You can add more. You cannot take it out. The apple butter is done when a spoonful mounded on a plate does not weep. Liquid around the edges. When it holds its shape. When it is thick enough to spread on toast without dripping off the knife. Another test. Drag the spoon across the bottom of the pot. If the gap stays open for 2 seconds before the butter flows back, it is ready. That is the old test. It still works. Turn off the heat, let it sit for 10 minutes. The bubbling will stop. The surface will settle. You are almost done. Wash your mason jars and lids in hot soapy water. Rinse well. Any soap residue will ruin the flavor. Have your jars ready before the apple butter comes off the heat. Hot apple butter goes into hot jars. If the butter cools in the pot, it thickens and becomes hard to ladle. You want it pourable. Ladle the apple butter into the jars, leaving a 1/4 inch of space at the top. Wipe the rims clean with a damp cloth. Any butter on the rim will prevent a seal. A bad seal means mold. Screw the lids on finger tight, not too tight, not too loose. Just snug enough to hold. The heat will create a partial vacuum as it cools, pulling the lid down tight. If you want shelf-stable jars, process them in a boiling water bath for 10 minutes. Fill the canner with water, bring it to a boil, lower the jars in and time it. If you are storing them in the refrigerator, let them cool to room temperature first. Then refrigerate. They will keep for 2 months in the fridge, a year on the shelf if properly sealed. One batch makes 4 to 5 pints, 40 to 50 servings. For the cost of a bag of apples and a bottle of cider. Spread it on warm toast while the bread is still soft. The butter will melt slightly and sink into the crumb. Stir it into oatmeal. A spoonful sweetens the whole bowl, no extra sugar needed. Put it on a biscuit. Put it on a cracker with a slice of sharp cheddar. The salt and the sweet work together. Thin it with a little hot water and brush it over pork chops before they go under the broiler. It makes a glaze that caramelizes. Give a jar to your neighbor. That is how it traveled, hand to hand, not shelf to shelf. If a jar goes moldy, discard it. But if you sterilized your jars and sealed them properly, it will not. The sugar and acid in the apples protect it. Jif has been the same since the 1950s. Apple butter changes every time, with the apples you found, the cider you used, the hours you gave it. Apples heat time in a jar, that is all. We will keep opening the vault one page at a time. Next time, we pull another forgotten staple from the garden and the pantry. If this apple butter belongs in your kitchen, save this page. Make it this weekend. Tell us what apples you used, how dark it got, what you spread it on. We are Grandma's Food Vault. Before these recipes are lost, we cook them where you can see every step. Thank you for watching. We will see you at the next page.